Buongiorno, dzień dobry, dobro dan, konnichiwa, guten tag, salam. Welcome back to Mr. B Presents. Today our topic is going to be Moldova. Interesting place. We're going to start off with a little bit of history, my history. Back in 8th grade, I had to take geography as part of my social studies, where Mr. Williams, my teacher back then, made sure that we all knew every country around the world and every capital of every state in the United States. Admittedly, the world in 1983 doesn't look anything like it does in 2024. We had a lot of big things happen. We had the Cold War going on in 1983. We've had a thing called the Soviet Union. Now the Soviet Union is gone. It was replaced in the early 1990s, 1989 to 1991, by a bunch of individual countries. And since I was out of school at that point, I never went back to learn my geography. So just as a kind of a where's things at, here's going to be a map of what the United States or what the world and Europe looked like in 1983. Now you'll notice that there's this big area that has not a whole lot of names. It's just a massive area. That's the United Soviet Socialist Republic. Now, with students today, that's kind of interchangeable with Russia, except it's not quite. The USSR was made up of several different countries, and we in the West, at least I didn't because we never knew it, it was just one big country, USSR, or the Soviets. Now, as kind of a comparison, here is what Europe looks like today. Notice there's a whole lot more countries down there than what there was that I had to study. So, why is this important to our studies for today, our discussion today? Well, in 2010, 2011, I get transferred to Germany. I arrive in Germany on Christmas Eve. I check into my unit, and in the first couple weeks of January, I'm told, you're going to go to a NATO exercise in some place called Moldova. My first response is, what? I've never heard of this. Where is Moldova? Of course, I got some ribbing from some other staff members that I know, buddies that I've been kicked out of places with now after that. Those are stories for other times. And they're like, you've never seen the movie Red. So I had to watch Red with Bruce Willis. Good movie. I recommend watching it at some point. It is hilarious. But Moldova is only the post-scene credit. So don't expect to see a lot of Moldova in that one. I had to pull it up. And as I said, if you're looking at the current map, here it is. It is right in between the Ukraine and Romania. Now, if you ask a lot of Moldovans, they would tell you that they would love to be part of Romania. I mean, here's a picture of the Romanian flag. Notice it's only 3 color stripes. Okay, here's Moldova's flag. Notice the difference. The only thing that changed is the crest in the middle of it. So they'd like to be a part of that. So I'm going to Moldova in 2011. I'm going to be there in August for an exercise with NATO. I know nothing of it. I don't know the language, anything like that. As in my first time there, what we talked about in previous video. I get there, and my first night there, I go and I do my usual meal thing. I eat by myself. I have a nice meal. I sit down and excellent meal. I don't remember what I had. It was excellent food, never gone wrong. But we're going to come back to the food one. I'll tell you the key to success, no matter what your career field. I don't care if you're in the military. I don't care if you're a politician. I don't care if you're a business person. It doesn't matter. What's important is making the connections with people. Now, Did I make any connections while I was there? Well, yeah. I was on a team. Here's a couple different photos. I'll throw them up as I'm going along here. And I'm on a multinational team. There is myself. I was a major at the U.S. Army at the time. I also have a lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army. And everybody else on our team was from various countries. We had a fire unit that was right there from Moldova because we're doing consequence management, or pretending that there was a national disaster, and how do we help and how do they perform things. And that's what a lot of the NATO countries were there doing, was what would we do to come help out Moldova if they had an earthquake and it really ruined the countryside and lives are at stake. So that's what we're there for. So that's why we had fire department, because they're going to be the first responders. We also had various other. There was a contingent from Georgia. I worked with Fritz, who was the director of the exercise, who's from Austria. And then I also met a gentleman by the name of Zoran. Zoran is from Romania. Now, he's just part of our team. He doesn't have to do anything with me, but he hangs out with me when we're not on duty. He's showing me around. He's taking me to the local museums there in Chisinau, which is the capital of Moldova. He's translating for me. He's making sure I get the really good food and having a really good time. Now, when you go to this exercise, you never know who you're going to interact with. As it was, he is Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure for Romania. It's a great way of knowing people. I had a great time hanging out with Zoran. It was beautiful. I couldn't have asked for a better tour guide. Never thought I would see him again. But then a few months later, we're at a planning exercise at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. I walk into a conference room. Now, if you've seen an average-sized classroom, yeah, this conference room was about 6 times the size of that. So it's a massive conference room in NATO headquarters. I got 3 of my civilians with me. I've got one who's an exercise planner from 2 headquarters above me. She was EUCOM staff. I've got, for those who don't know what EUCOM, that's European Command. That's the highest level command element in Europe, in charge of all forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, whatever, in Europe. And then I had one of my exercise planners that worked directly for me with me, and I had a planner from my lower headquarters. And we walk into the room, and I'm what we call the green suiter. I'm the military guy of the 4 of us. I get Zoran from across the room. Todd, my friend! He rushes up to me. Good European style, kiss on each cheek. How have you been? My 3 civilians are totally shocked what's going on. They've never seen this kind of reaction from anybody before. And the fact that I've never been to NATO headquarters and I'm being welcomed like an old brother. And we get done and I'm like, yeah, this is Zoran, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure for Romania. We met when I was in Moldova and we had a great time. And we sat there at the exercise planning, and everyone's like, well, is there anybody else here you know? I'm like, well, of course there is. I've got this group down here. They're from Georgia. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia. Yes, my students, there is a country called Georgia. It's in the the Caucasus Mountains area. In the military, we call it part of the GATT. I point out that's Fritz. He's from Austria. He'll be the exercise director. I've got a gentleman up here who's kind of who's helping out run the meeting. His name is Ed. He goes by Acorns. He's from England, but he's here representing the United Nations. They're all very gracious, and they're all amazed that I went in one exercise. I was able to meet all these people and establish relations. That's what it's all about. If you want to get things done, you got to have the connections. even if it's something as simple as getting some information. You've got to know people. What I'm saying, it's all about the connections. Now, keeping with Moldova and going back to my food story, I always will tell you when you're in a foreign country, even in the United States anymore, you've got to be aware of your situation and what's going on around you at all times. You never know what could possibly be a threat. I hate to say it this day and age, but you never know, and you got to be on the careful. Maybe it could just crime, it could be something worse. We don't want that. But if we're vigilant and we're keeping an eye, it won't happen. We're getting ready. Exercise has come to an end. We've got time for lunch before we leave out that evening to fly back home to Germany. I've got a different lieutenant colonel with me from my headquarters above me, and I've got another major from my own staff with me as well. And it's time to go out and get something to eat. Well, I'm all in favor of, you guys have known me, let's go get something new. Let's try something new. You never know what you might like. These two individuals were like, yeah, we want McDonald's. I'm like, but we're in a new country. We should try the local cuisine. No, we want McDonald's. We want McDonald's. We're American. We want. I was outvoted 2-1, and one outranked me. So we went to McDonald's, and we're sitting there. And number one, I hate sitting with my back to the door. I hate it. I don't feel as secure, but there was the colonel there, and he wanted to face out, so being a colonel, he got to do what he wanted to do. And I sat there and I just watched all the other tables while we're having conversations. I'm talking, we're eating our quarter pounder with cheese, but they don't call it that in Europe. It was the Royale. And I'm just paying attention. All of a sudden, I'm like, it's time to go. And the colonel's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, there's a table at my 2 o'clock, which is that direction from me. And there's a box on the table. It's a rather large box. It's open, and the people that were sitting at the table just got up and left. Could be trash. It could be something far more dangerous. I don't know. I don't want to find out. As we had already eaten our meal, and we were just kind of hanging out, chatting, and it was a busy restaurant, and I've now observed this. They're like, okay, yeah, it's probably time to leave. I'm glad one of us is looking out for security, and we departed. Now, good news is, it apparently was just trash because there was no reports of anything going off in the vicinity. Great to hear that one. But you never know. And you just got to be aware. I'm sure that if I had Zoran with me, we wouldn't have eaten at McDonald's. And he would have been keeping an eye on and say what's normal for us, because you got to know what's going on in the public. So that's a little bit about Moldova. Hopefully you've learned a little bit, and until next time, have a wonderful day. Please, if you want to, subscribe, leave a message, give me a like, and we'll do this again. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Ciao.